Hello and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm sharing with you this altered album that I created for my first design team project for the Mixed Media Place. This is an art journal that I've had in my stash for a while and I've never done anything with it, but because I really want to start sharing more of my art journal pages, I wanted to go ahead and alter an album. So I figured my first design team project would be the perfect place to start. So I'm just kind of showing you this album. This album is actually a pretty good size. I believe it's 7 by 9, and it has 12 of the white papers and then 12 of the craft paper. There's a plastic pocket in there for some extra ATCs or things like that. And it comes apart really easily, so it's easy to take the pages out and work on them. I started with a quick coat of white gesso, as you can see. And then I'm just going to adhere this random pile of scrapbook paper that I had just cut into squares and rectangles and such, just to build up a little bit of texture in the background. I'm not too worried about the pattern because you're going to see that I cover that with some white gesso after the fact. But initially I wasn't too worried about it because I know that I wanted to use blue for the album anyways. So I think this is from Pretty Mosaic. It's a Prima collection, I'm pretty sure. And now you're going to see me go ahead and put some more white gesso on top. You're going to see this gesso a lot. But more white gesso. And then we're going to move on. Now, because I'm playing off of the squares in the background, I went ahead and used this texture stamp. And it will be linked in the description below. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, sorry. But it's just one of Finn's clear texture stamps, and I'm just using it with a little bit of black StazOn ink. Any kind of waterproof ink would work great. And I'm just randomly stamping around the art journal, just wherever I think it might look okay. Just, you know, random here and there. And then I'm going to play up the squares even more with this stencil. I believe it's called Mind Games. And I'm using plaster paste. I'm using the plaster paste because it's, you know, it's plaster, so it's extremely durable and it goes through the stencil amazing. The only thing is make sure that you rinse your stencil out as fast as you can, because it will get stuck in there and you can ruin a stencil if you leave it in there. I imagine you could probably get it out with some things, but you know, just wash it. Safe bet. Anyhow, so I'm not too particular about it. I'm just randomly placing this around the art journal. You know, it's not anything specific. There's open spots, there's squares next to it. Some of it goes under the stencil. I'm not really being careful with this. I'm just trying to build up some texture in the background for the color that I'm going to lay on top. Now I'm starting to add my collage. I probably could have used a lighter gel, but because this is an art journal and I really do plan on using it, I wanted to make sure that everything was adhered well, so I used heavy body gel. And that Mitform is, you know, that's heavy. So I wanted to make sure that it was going to stay in place. So you're just going to see me start building my focal point. And that's just a little resin piece that I created out of an old Prima mold. And then you're going to see me keep layering some mechanicals. Some may be gone and not in stock, but anything that I have used, you'll see in the description below, or you can click over to the blog and you'll be able to purchase it from the Mixed Media Place. And all the links will be there as well. So I'm just going to let you watch me play around. I did try to speed this up quite a bit. I know this is about where we lose people when they're watching videos. So if you haven't already, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing if you would. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you do have any comments or questions, I'm always happy to answer them. Please feel free to leave them below. Now that that spool is out of the way, you can see that most everything is adhered. I did keep this really simple because it is a journal cover and I didn't want it to be too incredibly bulky. It's actually kind of big, but it could be worse. And I'm not 100% sure on placement, and things do get moved a little bit here and there. But for the most part, it's pretty intact. And you can kind of see I played off of things. So the little tiny stars are off of the barn star that's in the middle eventually. All the squares with the stamps and the paper in the background. And then I'm going to add a locket on top of that that even plays off the square a little bit more. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some gesso. And this, I'm not going to cover everything completely. I'm mainly focusing on the resin pieces to really make sure that they're covered so they accept the color well. But then I'm going to go ahead and do a quick once over on all the mechanicals as well. And that's just the technique that I'm doing. You'll see it just needs a little bit of gesso. It would work okay, but it just looks better with gesso. So I'm just continuing to dry brush, just a light dry brush of gesso across all the mechanicals. And for this, I'm using my tiny fan brush. It seems to work the best. That's just my preference. I find that a stiff bristle brush works best when I'm trying to dry brush, and it's probably because I tend to be a little bit heavy-handed, but that's what works for me. Anyhow, now I've moved on to my liquid acrylics, and I'm working with emerald and deep turquoise. These two colors are amazing together, and you can see that I've diluted them quite a bit already, and then once I place them on the album, I'm diluting them even more with the water bottle. So I'm working two-handed with a water bottle in one hand and the paintbrush in the other, and I'm just kind of moving my color around until I'm happy with it. The other thing is I'm doing one color at a time. So I'm going to do my green, I'm going to dry it, and then I'll put my blue on top of it. But I do dry in between both of my colors because I want them to be individual. I don't want them to pool together and be muddy. And because they're acrylic, they're not going to re-react with water. So now I've moved on to the blue, and you can see I'm just dabbing where I need to. I'm just moving it around. And if I'm not happy, I dab it off right away. And because I have that layer of gesso, it's going to come right off. So I did this on the front and the back as well. But I'm only going to show you the front part of the canvas because you don't need to see this process twice. And for the sake of time, I just try to keep it simple. Now I'm coming back with gesso again. I told you guys you were going to see this gesso a ton. Anyhow, so another coat of light dry brushing. I'm going to continue to dry brush this gesso across the very tips of everything just to kind of bring everything back to the surface that I've lost. So you're going to see that clock come back to life. You're going to see the star pop back out, and I'm just hitting the tops of everything, all that texture. Just bringing it back to the surface again. I'm going to continue to do this, and the key is just a light touch, and then if you need to, go over it a second time. It's better to go over it twice than to do it too heavy the first time. Now I've moved on to my rust paste, and I'm using the orange and the yellow from the rust paste set. I didn't use the brown for this. I substituted in the Carmine from the liquid acrylics. I just really like the deep red. You'll see that in a few minutes. But here I'm just adding the orange, and I'm just dabbing it around and spraying it so it kind of flows and it looks more rusty. It's kind of more natural. But I'm not too worried about the extra texture from it. I just really want the color. So that's why I'm okay using the water and not adding anything to it. So you'll see me move around the orange, and then I'm going to follow that with the yellow. And I just continue to dab and spray, and then anything that I'm not happy with, I'll wipe off with a baby wipe. There's the yellow, the water, and the baby wipe. Now I'm going to move on to the liquid acrylic. And you can see this glorious red. It's perfect for this. And I'm just gonna dab it on with a very fine brush. I'm using the teeniest, tiniest little bit and some water. And it just flows into all the texture created, especially from where the paper was. It just follows those lines. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. Just continuing to add color until I'm happy with it. Trying to make sure that I have all the texture that I want brought back out to be brought back out. And this is why I spent so much time adding those first layers of texture. Because when you're adding the color in now, you're seeing it, and now is when it's beneficial. So I'm just following around the edges of things and picking up all those different layers that I had added, focusing some on the focal point, just trying to get that into where I want it. And I'm just using the finest, tiniest little brush, and it's so crazy how intense this color is. I'm barely touching the paint, as you can tell. I spun around the album so I could get a different look at it and make sure I have it everywhere that I want it to be. And it's just, see how much, just one little squirt of water, and that's how much it moves. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The more I use these liquid acrylics, the more I love them. And I really wasn't sure in the beginning. Now I'm just doing a bit of random stamping with gray stays on ink and some stamps from this Art Daily collection. They say, take your time, breathe, soulful, find your balance, things like that. Just some encouraging words, because this is an art journal. And now you can see I've moved on to the wax, so I'm adding white gold. And you can see the back cover. I know I didn't show you why I was making that, but you can see that I used the same technique on the front that I did on the back. But I'm lightly going over the back, just trying to pick up some of that dimension. And now I'm going to show you the front, where I'm going to be very, very heavy-handed with this wax. And I know, like, if you watch my videos in the past, I'm like, don't go so heavy-handed. Just a little bit goes a long way. But here I really wanted to lay on the shine. So I'm really, really being heavy-handed with the wax this time. So you're going to see that I'm going to go around that star, and you're really going to see on that pebble. So I keep going back and forth, and you can see I have the wax in my hand, and I've turned my hand completely into my palette at this point in time, and I'm working off of my hand with the wax, and I'm just spreading it around. Now for the rest of the texture on top of the art journal, I'm just lightly touching, and you won't even see some of it, and I'm really just focusing on where the color and the rust is. So thank you so much for watching this today. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you have any questions or any comments, I love to read them, and I greatly appreciate them. Also, if you could consider giving this video a thumbs up, I would appreciate that as well. And also, if you would consider subscribing. Here's a final look at the journal. Thank you so much, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.